All right, folks, it is definitely Thursday, the 13th day of June. And of course, we've got a lot of things going on in the world. So we're going to talk about those and see what's happening. Of course, one of the things that is going on is that Biden leads a new draft to cement the West Ukraine effort against Putin and apparently against Trump as well. So U.S. and Europe have agreed to lock up Russian assets until it pays for the Ukraine war, clearing the way for a $50 billion loan. So definitely looks like some more money will be coming toward Ukraine as they are continuing their fight against the folks over there in Russia and all along those lines. So it definitely looks like that $50 billion loan will be coming into Ukraine's coffers. And it looks like Buenos Aires has been rocked by clashes against President Milei's reforms. So Argentina has passed a slimmed down economic reforms amid pains and protests. So Argentina's Javier Milei wins Senate approval for his economic reforms. So definitely it looks like that is going on, even though it looks like there are folks that are upset about that. So the Argentine riot police unleashed water cannons and tear gas to disperse the protesters in that part of the world. And the mother of the rescued Hamas hostage, says son described strange rules while in captivity. So the Palestinian family recounts the horror of Israel's hostage rescue raid that left a grandfather in mourning. So definitely there's a lot of things that are going on in that space. As a matter of fact, the rescued Israeli hostage's parent says it was the happiest day of our lives. So definitely that is good news for those that have been rescued and all along those lines. So definitely that's some of the news. And also a CNN reporter breaks down an inquiry accusing Israel and Palestinian militants of war crimes. So definitely the UN inquiry says the immense scale of Gaza killings amounts to a crime against humanity. So that is something that's going on. And I want to say that they were accusing both Israel and Hamas of war crimes. At least that's what the UN is saying, and all in that space. And the U.S. is saying that Hamas was seeking changes to the ceasefire plan, and Hamas denies proposing new ideas. So it looks like they're still trying to figure out if they can get a ceasefire or not. And Britain's Labour Party is pledging wealth creation as it targets a landslide election victory. So Sunak is in Italy for the G7, and the Labour manifesto vows wealth creation. So they are definitely saying that they're going to find a way to create some wealth in that particular part of the world. And Russian warships are entering Havana harbor under Washington's watchful eye. So definitely it looks like that is something else that is in the news, as they are definitely planning to do some exercises there with their allies. So Russia and Cuba are planning to be involved in that space and all along those lines. And back to the Middle East, Hezbollah is bombarding Israel with rockets and drones. And Hezbollah says it attacked 9 Israeli military sites with rockets and drones. So definitely that is something else that is in the news as well. And the U.S. reporter Evan Gershkovich, who is jailed in Russia on espionage charges, is to stand trial. So it looks like we're going to have another trial situation, kind of like what went on with Brittany Griner. But in this case, this particular lady is being charged on charges of spying for the CIA. So definitely that is something else that is in the news as well. And Russia is halting foreign exchange trading as U.S. sanctions are sowing confusion. So Russia lines up to buy U.S. dollars as the ruble plummets after new sanctions. So we're saying that Russia suspends the dollar and euro trade on the flagship stock exchange. So when Sasha gets back, he might have some thoughts about the stock exchange and how the global stock exchange plays in some of these conversations as well. But definitely that is something going on. And Florida is in the news once again because apparently they're getting hit by some very bad weather. So Governor DeSantis has declared a state of emergency for Sarasota County. So after a deluge of flooded streets, South Florida is apparently bracing for more rain. So definitely that is something that's going on. And they've even closed parts of I-95 and they've ground some flights in that part of the world as well. And the congressional baseball game descended into chaos after protesters stormed the field. So definitely climate protesters disrupted the congressional baseball game. And apparently Republicans had a decisive 31-11 victory. So I think that this is a regular game that goes on usually in the springtime. And it looks like the Republicans walloped the Democrats in that particular game and all along those lines. Speaking of walloping and just speaking of games, just really briefly, it does look like the Dallas Mavericks are in a very precarious situation because they lost in their home field. So they are down 0-3, and no team has ever come back from 0-3 to win a championship. I think there have been a couple that might have won some rounds, but it's only a select few, and it definitely looks like that is going to be an uphill mountain for them to climb. So I wouldn't be putting any money on that. As a matter of fact, I think Sasha predicted a sweep, and he might be right and everything in that space. Trump's F-bomb rant to Mike Johnson apparently is sparking a desperate GOP move. So definitely furious Trump told Speaker Johnson, we have to overturn this after his conviction. So definitely it looks like there's a lot of things going on in that space as well. And pro-Palestinian vandals target the homes of the Brooklyn Museum trustees with red paint. So definitely looks like the vandals also splashed graffiti on the home of the Jewish director of a Brooklyn museum. So definitely it looks like Jewish leaders in New York City are calling for revival of the anti-mask law to curb the alarming surge in anti-Semitic incidences. Sorry about that, but anti-Semitic incidences, and they're hoping to curb that and all along those lines. And a Texas man dies after being electrocuted in a jacuzzi at a Mexican resort. So it definitely looks like he was over there in a seaside resort and got electrocuted and all in that space. And there was a woman that was injured as well. And definitely looks like Sandy Hook survivors graduate from high school. So definitely that is something that is in the news. So Newton High graduates told to honor their 20 classmates killed as first graders today and every day. So Sandy Hook survivors reflected on a happy yet sad graduation. So definitely that happened that long ago that they are now graduating. And UCLA has a new chancellor, that being Julio Frank. And definitely that is something that we are seeing as well. And I'm sorry, definitely they have named a new chancellor. And I'm trying to see if that is actually the name because it looks like that there's also some talk about a president for the University of Miami as well. So I was correct. That is the name because it's the University of Miami president that left to become the chancellor of UCLA. So definitely right now, for as far as Miami, CEO Joe Echeverry will be serving as the acting president. So definitely that is something going on, as there are definitely some of these campuses that are still reeling from other protests. And we know what happened with the Hunter trial and the Trump trial, but there's another trial going on as well, that being the Karen Reed trial. And the lead investigator reads regrettable message in the court. So jurors in the Karen Reed trial are to hear more from the state police who oversaw the investigation. So definitely that is something that is going on as well in terms of news and criminal news. And the El Nino climate pattern officially ends as a flip to hurricane fueling La Nina looms. So definitely that is something going on, because don't forget we are in the midst of hurricane season, and most of Michigan is at risk for severe weather. And definitely that is something that folks will be paying attention to as well. And it looks like the Some people are saying that Hunter Biden is expected to appeal his conviction on gun charges. And apparently, some GOP representatives are saying that Hunter Biden conviction creates an opening for Michelle Obama. So maybe they're trying to think that Michelle Obama might want to run as well. So we'll see if that's what is being speculated and if anything goes on that. Last time I checked, she had no interest in running and all in that space. And the ACLU and migrant rights groups are suing over Biden's asylum crackdown. So definitely looks like the ACLU is suing over Biden's new executive orders on the border. And after a week has Biden order took effect, it looks like the migrant numbers are down, but there are glitches. And of course, now we've got folks that are given suits and all in that space. So like I said, there's a lot of things going on in the world, and I'm sure we'll have a number of things to talk about. Right now, it's just me and Nick, so I'm gonna bring Nick up and see what he's got going on and see if anybody else joined us. And like I said, I did have a guest invited that I had on the show yesterday who is very much wanting a divorce in the country. So he's written a book about the case for a national divorce, and is definitely a self-avowed MAGA person and everything along those lines. So, like I said, I did send him the link yesterday, but he's on Central Time, so maybe he's a little confused and everything. I'll send him a note while we're talking and seeing where he's at, because he is a working class kind of gentleman and everything. But yeah, he was definitely interesting conversation on the online dinner party, because I had him and also had a peace activist. But yeah, he basically, his argument is that if Trump doesn't win, the world will go to hell in a handbasket. And also his other part of the argument is that there should be a call for national divorce, and he feels that if the Democrats win, that all kinds of immoral things will happen in the country and all along those lines. Of course, as I understand, you're not worried about that because you're going to move to Spain, or at least spend part of your time in Spain. Yeah. But yeah, he had some interesting arguments in that sense. And like I said, I did send him the invitation, so hopefully he didn't get time zones confused and everything. But I'm seeing that he wrote me a letter yesterday, so I'm writing him right back now to see what's going on, if he can make it or not. But definitely that's kind of his argument, but I'll let him make it himself if he can make it here and everything. But what's your take on all this criminal stuff going on, and are we playing politics with the court system and all along those lines?
The answer is yes. Okay. And we'll start with the Hunter Biden case. Okay. If you look at it objectively, which no one is, because everybody's going to be on both sides, that it's kind of like what they call a ticky-tack foul turned into a felony. And because he marked a box that he believed he wasn't alcoholic. And let's see what purpose it serves. I mean, because usually the law, there's a reason behind the law. The reason is basically to keep drug dealers and addicted people out, not being able to purchase guns, or somebody that has severe mental problems to be purchasing guns. That's the reason. It's not, the reason is really not to convict people and throw them in jail for a long time for a felony. So we kind of have a misapplication of the law here. And in Bellingham, North Carolina, they actually had what they call mental health courts, in order to deal with mental health issues such as drug, alcohol abuse issues like what he has. This trial served no purpose at all to help anybody in the United States of America. It didn't. Okay, here's what it did do. It's the only purpose it served was the attorneys who collect the legal fees to attack and defend this particular case. But other than that, I looked at it as to be a complete waste of time, a real stretch. They're turning everybody into criminals in the United States. In other words, you'll be afraid to sign a form because maybe you signed it wrong. And if you signed it wrong, the government comes and gets you. And the government gets you, they convict you of a felony. So when you look at it all, Mark, we become a police state. So my commentary on the Hunter Biden case, it's a police state action, really. I mean, it's beyond horrible. My fear is I'm not sure if Spain is as draconian as the United States. So why was he tried in this case? Definitely it's because he was the son of Joe Biden. In other words, any other case like this, Mark, would have been what they call no pros. It would be out the door. They wouldn't do it. But It's almost like we're going to send a message that there's equal application of the law. There isn't equal application of the law. No, if you're a high-profile person, you can get your rear handed to you in court, and that's what this case is all about. So basically, it was a horrible case, bad decision, should never have been brought. Doesn't serve. Show me what purpose it serves. The guy's been clean. He's turned his life around, and I'll tell you, what he's doing is really tough. In other words, coming from a position of addiction to try to turn his life around. So it didn't help anybody. It was bad. I mean, I can't tell you how bad it is. But now let's go another bad decision. Donald Trump.
Yes.
Here's another one that's a felony. Okay, another what I call a ticky-tack foul. He marks a box. Or he didn't disclose this was a campaign contribution. Talk about a stretch. Are you kidding me? So how political was it? Well, they wanted to bring up sex and more sex and payoffs and all this other stuff. I believe that he had an adequate defense that he never used, saying, well, my attorney was there. If there was a form to file, I would expect him to file it. But he never used that defense, which shocked me. And I think that was a big strategic error on the part of the defense. Well, because he met with the gentleman from the National Enquirer. He met with his attorney, very important. He had the lawyer in the corner, and they all decided that this was okay to pay Stormy Daniels through the legal process. So reliance on counsel is a great defense, never used by the defense counsel. Or if it did, it didn't certainly come through. But let's look at what it does and what it doesn't do. It's a ticky-tack foul. Let's face it, Donald Trump is not, and I'm not, an election law attorney. You know, I mean, if anybody runs for office, you got to run and find. First thing you got to do is hire a lawyer who's an expert in election law to make sure you don't violate the hundreds of laws that are out there. So what purpose did it serve? It served no purpose at all, except to highlight a former president who's a convicted felon, which I object to because it disgraces our office more than anything. In other words, the United States is basically disgracing themselves in front of the world. And that's one reason I was against the Trump impeachments and frankly, the Clinton impeachments, is what you're doing is you're demeaning the people, the head of the United States of America or the former head and the office itself. So this was another bad decision, another over lawyering of the United States. Remember, we have over 1.5 million attorneys. You know, they're not homeless, Mark, because this is how they get jobs. I mean, defending and attacking stuff like this. And so here we have two cases back to back that should scare all Americans, realizing that we've turned into a police state. And all you have to do is mark the box incorrectly. And the government decides they're going to target you, you know, like the Inquisition. So why would anyone want to live in a police state? I mean, you know, maybe Nazi Germany was safer than the United States right now. They're not going to gash you, but they'll throw you in jail. And remember, we have more people in jail in this country than any other country in the world. Now, that's not a good thing to say. You know, on a pure basis, we have more prisoners than Russia, more prisoners than China. In other words, our solution is a hammer and jail sentence for everybody. Doesn't make us safer. Absolutely not. You know, that I can verify. Spain and Morocco are 6 to 4 times safer than the United States of America. The United States of America is not safe on a per capita and overall basis. So what did these laws actually do for us? Nothing, except cost the taxpayers more money, because if you incarcerate them, it's going to cost money, or the trials all cost money. Remember, we're paying for this, and we're broke. We're 35 trillion in the hole, and we're broke, and we're paying for this nonsense. Why there isn't a outrage? Why aren't the students protesting about the judicial system, which can incarcerate anybody anytime, including them as they got to know, you know, that that's taking place. So here we have 2 bad trials. It's really demeaning, and it's kind of scary to live in the United States of America today, because hey, shoot, you sign a form wrong and off to jail you go, or you didn't sign a form, off to jail you go. Whatever it is, jail is your future, and this is just not right. This is not the America that I signed up for, and certainly not the America I grew up in. I don't know what you want to call this, but it's really bad. And Mark, no one wants to be a politician, or even get close to politics. No wonder why we don't have good people running for office. You know, why would you want to subject yourself to this? Anybody who's competent subject to themselves to this torture other than Steve Rao.
Yeah, that's right. Steve Rao, who's over there in Morrisville, and apparently Taylor used to live in Morrisville, and I think he said got the wrong link, and that was my fault. So I'm trying to get him on the right link and all along those lines. But just really quickly, as I try to negotiate with him and get him over on this side and everything, what is your thoughts about the whole notion of this holding the money and everything? Because apparently that's what, oh, there we go. Taylor just came on to the right side and everything. So what is your thoughts about holding the money and all in that space? Because a lot of people are wondering about this $50 billion loan and all along those lines.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting how they're going to pay for it. Apparently they seized 300 billion of Russian assets. Okay. Because remember the monetary system is international. And so what happens when Russia decided to invade Ukraine, the Western countries seized not 1 billion, not 2 billion, not a couple million, 300 billion of Russian money. They just froze it. So here's what they're doing. They're using the interest on the 300 billion to pay the loan, if you can imagine that. 300 billion is a lot of money, and Russia should be a little bit perturbed on that. But at the same time, I mean, come on, do you see what they're doing in Ukraine? I would certainly also use that money I wouldn't give the money back to Russia. I wouldn't give it back. I'd take the 300 million, use it to rebuild Ukraine, because I think what Russia did, they lie. I mean, people don't understand. Yeah, he lied. He surrounded Ukraine and said, I'm not going to attack Ukraine. The next thing they invaded it. They're a terrorist organization. Their whole idea to control people, it's worse than the United States, if that's possible. We throw people in jail, they just knock them off. And they also throw people in jail, and they all kill people. So you got a terrorist state out there. And so in that respects, the United States is better than Russia, obviously.
Well, speaking of terrorists and everything, we've got Taylor with us. I did have the pleasure of having him on the online dinner party yesterday and everything. And I know that you have occasionally switched from party to party, but I think Taylor's notion, and you're one of the two founders, Nick, along with Kim Calhoun of Pod TV, but I think that Taylor's thesis, and he can tell you about it better than I can because it's his thesis, is that the Democratic Party is destroying America and is kind of like being run by I think communist sympathizers, I guess is the word that he would use, and all along those lines. But Taylor, tell us what your thoughts are. And I know that you are very much pro-Trump and is looking for what you feel will be a landslide victory and all along those lines. So if you just tell us about this book of yours, because you wrote about this notion of Trump from a Christian perspective and all along those lines. And I don't know what you think about Trump's foreign policy. We were talking about foreign policy before you got here and everything, but definitely love to hear the reasons that you feel that Trump is the best man for the job.
Well, I tell you, I think he's the best man for the job because he definitely stands for traditional America. He's all about making America great again. He came along in that era when America was the premier superpower in terms of production and output and so forth. I think that's what he wants to replicate. And basically now my book is about the fact that there are two moralities within the culture. There's a traditional morality and the secular morality. The traditional is represented by the Republicans, the secular by the Democrats. And at this juncture, it seems like the secular morality is trying to overtake the traditional and remake America in a secular morality format. And that's unacceptable. So I think, Donald Trump stands for traditional American values, and that's why I stand with him.
How would a national divorce work? Because I know that there have been talk about even Trump himself has said that there would be a bloodbath, his words, not mine, if he doesn't win and everything. So, and I know that there have been even people that have talked about the red states going one way and the blue states going another. And I do know that a national divorce is in your title, and you talk about the fact of there being a different kinds of morality and different kinds of agendas. So how would a national divorce work? And do you think that we are heading toward that kind of national divorce? I don't think we've seen anything like that since maybe the Civil War, even though there have been places like Texas and others that have talked about secession, but nobody has actually seceded as of yet. So how would a national divorce work?
Well, I I'll need help to flesh that out, I think. But what I was thinking of, instead of letting federalism work, that there should be a boundary, a permanent boundary between the two sides, really, kind of like a North and South Korea, in that with a permanent boundary, you can assure the fact that your red state will stay red. It won't suddenly become blue with the influx of other types of morality folks. It's rather simplistic, perhaps, but that's what I'm thinking of. Now, you had mentioned, Mark, about the bloodbath. The bloodbath comment was pertaining to what's going to happen with the economy if Trump should lose. Now, I don't know if you were aware of the fact, but Biden proposed a $7.3 trillion budget for next year. And if he's elected, Democrats hold the House and the Senate, that budget's going to go through. And that's like $3 trillion more than we're currently taking in taxes. We're already struggling. That will make us, I think, a de facto socialist country.
Yeah. Nick, what's your thoughts about that? Like I said, you were one of the founders of the network, and I know that you're thinking about moving to Spain. And from a legal standpoint, can you do that?
I have my plane ticket. I have my room there. It's not a thinking about. I'm moving to Spain, Mark. I mean, for people there are a lot of people that talk about, well, I'm going to leave the country. I'm leaving the country. I have my plane tickets, got my place over there. I'm out of here. So,
hey, Nick, I'm going to come visit, Nick. I'll come visit.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I get to know a lot about Barcelona and the ways of life of Spain, which is so different than it is in the United States. But mainly, the European Union is kind of a cool place. I've been visiting it every year for the last several years now. And then I go, okay, well, why don't we just move over there? And I'll come visit the United States and watch from Europe. But, here's the problem that we have, okay? What we're pointing out is true. There's a lot of problems, especially in the finance area, that are brushed aside. Mark, Shaquille from Australia need links, by the way.
I'm going to send it to him right now. I just saw that message.
Okay. And what you're saying is true. What happened right after World War II, we had 50% of the GDP in the whole world. Now it's dropped to 24%. And we have a show Monday with the former Comptroller General of the United States, David M. Walker, who discusses these issues. Another big issue is Medicare and Social Security. Medicare will go broke this decade. Go broke. And you can go on their website. They say, well, we're not really broke. We just can't pay our bills. Really? Okay, well, that's pretty broke to me. Social Security goes broke next decade. So we're heading to a cliff. And so who are they going to rely on to bail out Social Security and Medicare? The U.S. government, of course, which is $35 trillion in the hole and increasing. In other words, they're broke too. I mean, this is the reality. The next biggest debt in the world is China. It's like $4 trillion. We're like huge amount of debt and no plan to repay it, no plan to balance the budget right. Then Joe Biden submits another budget that he can't find a dollar that he can't spend. And if he can't find that dollar, he just spends more. It's been really the fault of both parties because Trump did the same thing. So I kept flipping parties. So I'm independent because I'm going, the parties don't have the answer. They're the problem. And the United States will not solve it. In other words, in the next 10 years for the succeeding generations, it's going to get worse here. The Gini coefficient, people don't follow that. That's the mobility of people through social classes is at an all-time low. Our education, K through 12, isn't even the top 25 in the world. So if you look at all the metrics, the only thing we have going for us, our GDP, is the highest GDP in the world, the gross domestic product. Other than that, you're looking at all the metrics show a slow or perhaps even very quick decline, and the people in Washington are not the solutions. They're all, they're all power mongers, but it's almost like it's like the Titanic. We're in an iceberg, and what we're going to do is just ignore the icebergs and hope and pray they all go away, but they're not going to go away. So what can you do? A, you can stand on the bow of the Titanic and watch it go down. B, get on the lifeboat and go away. I choose B. So I'm on my lifeboat. I'm off to Europe, and sayonara. Good luck to you. Good luck to you, Yanks, as they would say. I mean, what am I supposed to do? I'm not going to stay here and get pummeled when opportunities abound. And frankly, if you're looking for financial opportunities, it's probably not even best here. It's probably in Singapore and in that part of the world, the Indonesian Singapore area, which some of the GDP increases like 8% per year. We grow at 2 or 3. So I think, and I'm trying to convince my grandkids to look more international for your opportunities. Don't look domestically. This place is going to be very sluggish, whether they like it or not. All Biden had to do to get my vote is to balance the budget. The last one who did it was Clinton. Before that was Nixon. Between, there was nobody. And if they can't balance the budget, which they can, by the way, they can, Taylor. All they have to do is balance it. And what they have to do is,
I agree.
they have to cut out some of the stupid, wasteful spending that goes on by all these different departments.
You mean like the Green New Deal?
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, yeah. We don't need as a lawyer, I'm involved in. But most of my angst is defending my clients against the U.S. government. Now, they're not here to help me. I'm here to defend them. And what did they do wrong? They set up retirement plans. Really? Where'd you get the money to do that? Well, here's what happened. And I railed on it, but now I got a subpoena and I got to testify in behalf of one of my clients. Here's what they did. The Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation was $26 billion in the hole. Biden gave them $80 billion. Now they have plenty of money. There are a bunch of lawyers with plenty of money. What are they going to do? Sue people. So they're literally filing federal cases against 2 or 3 people plans. Okay, that is what I'm experiencing. What about all the other places that are out there where we see the government intrusion? I just railed on the Hunter Biden case and the Donald Trump case. That's useless resources. I'm railing on Internet for All. The government shouldn't spend that type of money. We don't have that money for that. I rail against the charging stations all over the country. We're all paying for those charging stations. We don't have the money for that. That's insane. So as you go down the list, Taylor, there's plenty of places that you can get money and save money and balance this bloody budget. But if your mindset is I will spend money, show me any idea, I'll spend the money on it, then what you're going to have is what we have right now, $35 trillion in debt, no possibility to get out, no care in the world to get out. So I'm out, as they would say. And what was the name of Shark Tank? I'm out. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah, that makes sense. Just really quickly, because I said we got Rick and we've also got Shaquille from Australia and everything. Rick is considered more of a liberal gentleman and everything. He does a show called Ironically Naked at Night, which is him and a very conservative gentleman going back and forth, kind of like the old Counterpoint show and all along those lines. But I was curious, Taylor, and then like I said, Shaquille may have some questions for you as well. He's actually, even though he has sometimes been portrayed as a conservative, I would say he's probably more libertarian than anything. And everything in that space. But I was just wondering, what do you think your take is on terms of some of the things that are going on in terms of foreign policy and economics? So what are you expecting from a Trump election? Because you yourself yesterday told me that you consider yourself a part of the MAGA crowd and all along that lines of thing. But what is your take on what you're expecting in terms of foreign policy and economics should Trump win the election?
Well, economics, I think he'll do just what he did before. He'll cut taxes, and that really spurs economic growth. With regard to foreign policy, China was held in check last time, as well as Russia, Iran. They were sanctioned and given various tariffs that put them in place. You notice, for example, Russia, they invaded Ukraine when Obama was president. Trump was president, they didn't touch Ukraine at all. And Biden comes in and everything goes to hell is what's happening. So I do believe it's a combination of sanctions, tariffs, diplomacy, and it worked before. I do believe that's the way he's going to go.
Okay. What about economically? And then, like I said, we've got our regular panelists. I was mixed up on the links, and I apologize for that. But what is your thoughts around what is going to be done economically should there be a Trump presidency?
Well, as I say, he's planning on, he's going to have to cut taxes to spur the economy. And I think he's going to have to definitely cut way back in spending, get inflation down. And, I'm sure that they'll make judicial cuts as to where we can spend, where we can't spend, programs that are needed and those that aren't. And, I think that is the way that he will approach it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And what are your thoughts around? There's been a lot of conversations, and I know that Sasha's a big investor in NVIDIA, but in AI and a number of things along those lines. So you heard earlier that Nick is not a fan of internet for all and everything, but what is your thoughts around that? And also, I've heard some people say that he did more for the African-American community than, say, Biden is, and you are an African-American gentleman. So I was just wondering some of your thoughts around that, including some of the HBCU conversations.
Internet for all? Well, why not? Why not? I know that's probably an expenditure we don't need now, but why not? Everybody's going internet. Everybody needs to be, I think, cyber literate. And what was the other item that you mentioned, Mark?
The impact you were considered, and we were on the online dinner party yesterday, but you even yourself have said that you considered yourself a Black conservative. So what is the reasons that you think there seems like there's been a spike in interest in the African-American community for Trump? So what is your thoughts about what he did in his past presidency, and what are you expecting from him this term in terms of minority policies, even minority economic policies?
Well, as John F. Kennedy has said, a rising tide lifts all boats. And so I think with the cutting of taxes, smart programs with regard to keeping inflation low or negligible, the pocketbook issues will really spur, I think, the Black community. And as well, he had set up enterprise zones with the Black communities before. He was going to make a concerted effort to get some real industry in zones that aren't necessarily even considered by the economic community. And it was happening, it was definitely happening. I'm sorry.
That's right. Well, cutting taxes without cutting spending or coming up with more sources of revenue is wildly inflationary. And one thing with Trump is, like, the success of a presidency, some of it depends on being able to have competent people around you. And competent people work for Trump for a while, like Rex Tillerson, very competent, CEO of Exxon, worked for Trump for 10 months and then quit, saying he couldn't work for a fucking idiot.
Just along those same lines and everything, just really quickly to let folks know, other people that have questions as well. Taylor has written a book. It's a very interesting book called The Case for a National Divorce, A Christian Perspective. And he is of the notion that there are two moralities, a secular morality and a religious morality. And he feels that the Republican Party and Trump are more of the religious morality, whereas the Democrats are more of the secular morality. And he even has talked about some of the kind of conversations around LGBT rights and other kind of things in that space is part of the reason that he feels that Trump is the better man for the job. So I know that Shaquille may have some questions, and Nick has already asked some, and Rick has raised some as well. So we were, Sasha, you heard his opinion about Trump and the foreign policy, and I know that you are a Ukrainian that lives in Canada and have a show, Ukraine, Russia, and China. And you've talked about even some of the things that are going on in Israel and Palestine. And I forgot to ask
Mark, I'm so sorry. I don't understand how you discuss a foreign policy with a convicted felon and one who is selling the U.S. proprietary documentation and information to foreign people. What are you talking about, huh?
Well, ask Taylor. Taylor's the one who's written the book and everything. And I have heard some other people that have asked on that same line, because I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and he was asking about this notion of selling sneakers and other things to try to get certain votes and everything. So you heard Sasha's answer. So what would your answer be, Taylor, to my friend that to what Sasha just said, and also to my friend that was asking about the shoe sales that apparently Trump was selling, as well as the new Bible that he's trying to put out as well?
Well, he is the consummate businessman, always trying to make some money. He's about capitalism, no doubt about it. And with regard to his being
alive, you know that he was losing money all his life. He never made a penny. All his wealth, all his money coming from Russian mafia and United Arab Emirates. He never made even one penny himself.
Oh, well, he did quite well for whatever he did. I have to disagree with that.
Based on what you disagree? What do you know about Trump?
Well, in terms of his own wealth and how he acquired it, I don't know a lot about that. I really don't.
Books. There are books. Several books which explain going by Poland.
Hang on.
Talking about on public about Trump, at least know something. You cannot be so ignorant as to say.
Let's not attacking you.
Sasha,
no, we know the Canadian view.
Shaquille,
let's not attacking you, guests, because I can tell you that, you know, I'm not going to speak on behalf of Taylor. I think that he is more than capable of doing that for himself. But if you listen to what he's talking about throughout this whole show, you hear him talking about, you know, Christian values versus secular values. What I pick up on from a lot of Americans on both sides, actually, of the political aisle, is a feeling of invisibility, as if any time they try to express anything or express, you know, what they need and what they feel is going to improve their lives, they get instantly attacked by the other side. We do it on our shows all the time. We attack each other all the time for these sorts of things. Rick and I don't generally do it that much, but, you know, some of the others, we do this. And I think it creates actually a massive amount of division. Does anybody on this panel really want to see the United States split up into different regions? But, you know, if you listen to the way Americans talk, you know, you go to California, you hear Californians saying, look, you know, maybe all those red states should go off and do their own thing. You go to the red states and they say, look at what's happening in New York. Maybe we should, you know, operate without New York and California. I don't think this is healthy. And I actually don't think it's healthy for the rest of the world, the rest of the Western world. Because what's happening in the United States, all of the issues that you guys are facing, from inflation to what happened with COVID to LGBTQ rights, which are in play at the moment, and what we're supposed to do with young people, and what's happening in the education system, healthcare, all these things are in play in all the other countries as well. Now, I think that at some point, we all have to decide what it is that we actually stand for. Leaders will come and go. Donald Trump will win or he won't. Okay, but let's say he wins. He'll be gone in 4 years. But the rest of us have to actually live in a world that we're going to create. And we can sit here and argue with each other over this absolute bullshit about personality politics or about things that don't really have much of an effect on our lives. But at the end of the day, the world we will live in tomorrow will be our responsibility. And I don't think we should let big media and all these politicians let us divide each other the way that we are at the moment.
Hey, just really quickly along those same lines, and this is for Taylor, because one of the things I oftentimes hear people talk about is this notion of personality politics. And there is definitely, Shaquille just kind of alluded to it. And there is no doubt that in terms of being a showman and a better showman, Trump outpaces Biden by miles and everything. So what is your take on this notion of us electing people based on their popularity and not necessarily what they are saying? Because definitely he is a greater showman. I mean, you can go to any of his rallies. I'm sure you've been to some of his rallies, and they are definitely a show. I've only seen them on TV. I've never been to one. Not saying I won't attend one, but I just wondered, what is your notion about how we've gotten into personality politics?
Well, with the greatest respect, for those of you that are Joe Biden supporters, I think it's a little ridiculous to try to pass off Joe Biden as being this extremely energetic, amazing person. He's not. We can all see that, right? So I don't even know why people trying to gaslight us with that. Is Donald Trump a greater showman than Joe Biden? Well, my cat is a better showman than Joe Biden. I mean, what are we talking about here? All right. But if we go back, Obama was certainly a very charismatic and friendly politician, right? He had that great look and feel about him. Okay, Bill Clinton was exactly the same thing. Bill Clinton was certainly a much more vibrant personality than George H.W. Bush, or his son, for that matter. So, I think that the idea that personality politics is something new, I don't think that is really the case. I think that's happened. And again, it's just the United States, because you guys don't know as much about other countries as you do your own. But we all have that. I don't think that's that big a deal. But I will say that the kinds of things that I see people arguing about, I often sit there and go, what difference does it make? Like, why do you care so much about what's happening in your neighbor's house? Well, here we are. The left, that's why I'm being called a leftist all of a sudden by my right-wing friends. I don't like big corporations getting together and manipulating government. I've never liked that. The reason I don't like centre-left political parties is because I feel that that's what they do. They make these deals with big corporations and they try to tell the rest of us how to live. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, Rick will say, no, it's the centre-right that does that. Okay, fine. We can argue about that. I'm fairly anti-establishment, more libertarian myself personally, and I get called all sorts of names as a result of that. But the bottom line is that we are allowing these idiots, and I don't think anybody, I don't care who you like in politics, they're all a bunch of thieving bloody crooks as far as I'm concerned. And I cannot understand for the life of me why we let them dictate to us what we should be arguing about, when most of the time what we're arguing about is absolute rubbish. And by the way, when is somebody going to bring up something in mass media about the extraordinary level of debt that the United States currently has, the extraordinary amount of unfunded liabilities that the United States currently has? Now, the United States was quite helpful, as was China, in bailing out the European Union. Now, if the US has all those sorts of debts, what's going to happen with the European Union? Have you seen the debt levels of those 27 countries plus the United Kingdom? I mean, we are talking about a catastrophic economic situation that's going to be affecting the major Western countries in the world. The G7 summit, all of those countries are in dire financial condition at the moment, in my personal opinion, and there's no conversation about that at all. Instead, it was whether or not, Joe Biden was, pointed at the wrong direction and this. I don't care. The major issues that are affecting us just aren't being spoken about. And I think that's a shame.
So center left or center right, AI and tech will lead to more corporate control of our lives. And Taylor is right that we need to look at morality and at the same time embrace the tech to make sure that the tech that's coming learns morality, because without it we are screwed.
So Taylor, you've heard all this conversation and everything. What's your take on what the gentlemen are saying? Sometimes we do have a woman that comes on who's the other owner, Kim Calhoun, but she's not here today, and sometimes Christina as well. But just what's your take? And also, speaking of women, what is your take on what the women vote will do? Because there is some speculation that the women vote, because of the abortion decision and other decisions, will be a deciding factor in the election one way or the other for Trump. So what is your take on what they've said, but also the role of women in the upcoming election?
Well, it had been that Trump had lost a lot of support, I think, among suburban women. I don't think they liked his personality that much, but what they're doing, I think, now is comparing pocketbook issues with Biden and comparing that to the previous Trump administration. And they were better off under Trump, no doubt about it. With regard to what Sasha said, with Trump being a convicted felon, that's the perception that Democrats definitely want the public to have of him, so that you would not want to vote for him or support him. It's really a non-issue. I mean, the charges that they brought up are going to be overturned, and the conviction itself is rather bogus.
So
But
I'm looking at a Gallup poll survey of religion in America. 20 years ago, 42% of U.S. adults attended religious services every week. Now it's down to 30%. 20 years ago, 9% of Americans had no religious affiliation. Now that's up to 21%. And I would argue that having Trump be a figurehead for evangelical Christians does not do the church any favors, because Trump himself is so ungodly, and seeing
Come on, Rick. Come on now.
I'll tell you, Rick, one of the Bible characters is David, for example.
Yeah,
David, God called David a man after my own heart. Now, David had 8 wives. He had countless concubines. He'd had men killed so he could get their wives. Why would God refer to him that way? You are judging him based upon some standard of perfection you want him to attain, I think. But the fact is, all I care about is that he stands for solid American values and putting America first. That's really what I care about, and I think that's all the MAGA movement people care about.
Hey, Taylor, just along those same lines, there's been a lot of conversation around.
Hold on, wait a second. One point. David repented eventually, King David. He told the Lord he was sorry. Like, Trump is really bad at saying he's sorry or he did anything wrong.
Just along those same lines.
Rick, when you say that Trump is the figurehead of evangelicals, right? I think that the hard left, the more progressive side of politics, have got to understand that many of the policies that they have pursued, especially in relation to LGBTQ stuff, has moved so fast that people are like, what is going on? Well, they want to do what to our kids? I mean, for example, some of the puberty blocking medications that you guys are always talking about in America have just recently been barred from most of the places in Europe that used to allow it because they were concerned. So, you've moved things very, very quickly and in a way that has made people of religion, that have religious values, feel very, very attacked. Donald Trump, whether he be rightly or wrongly, actually appealed to them in a way that Hillary Clinton didn't. And I also would just go back to 2016, even from the other side of the world, and actually I was in the US in 2016 as well. Democrats were expecting what? Your political process is brutal at the best of times, but Democrats spent the entire year attacking Hillary Clinton and saying why you shouldn't vote for her and how she's going to be a terrible leader. And then as soon as she actually gets the nomination, all of a sudden, if you don't vote for her, you're an immoral, terrible, horrible person who's a threat to the country. So, I mean, I don't know why people want to act as though somehow it's the fault of evangelical Christians that Donald Trump has been there and now he's just this worldwide menace. I think that is such an overreaction, personally.
Just really quickly, because we did have some questions, including one from Kim and everything that I'd love to hear Taylor's thoughts about it. I'll bring those up and everything, but just really quickly, we can go a little bit over because I started late and everything, but I was wondering your thoughts around the migrant issue, because that's the other issue that a lot of people are paying attention to. So Taylor, what is your thoughts about, are we doing enough for the migrants? We just had this new border rule and everything, and do you see that Trump will do better in terms of border controls?
Oh, Trump did better, unquestionably. As a matter of fact, when Biden, on his first day taking office, he undid the Trump policies, and we've had a steady flow of incoming illegal immigrants ever since. We're up to about 10 to 12 million right now. They're just flowing in. As with regard to the new executive order that he's written, it really only pertains to 6 countries. That's it. Everything else is allowed to go as it had before. So it's really just an election year ploy, I think.
Well, let's see some of the questions that folks were asking you, including some from Kim, because Taylor was, I think just maybe Kim as well. If Trump hides and covers up cheating on his wife with paying a porn star and business expenses, what else is he going to lie and cheat the people when he is president? And she also asked a direct question, because she was asking, do you believe in compromised moral values for money and economy is worth voting for a president? So she was asking some of those same questions that you were.
Well, maybe Donald Trump learned politics from his good friends at the time, Hillary and Bill Clinton, about lying and cheating on their wives. But I assume the question's to Taylor.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
You do have an ally. So Adam Lamparello, who is on the show sometimes, was saying that Trump will be elected in 2024 and is claiming that he is the best choice for president. And all along those lines, Kimberly did come back and say that one thing that she likes about Trump is he can see the true light in people's real moral values.
I think but people make this moral argument. If you want to try and hate half the countries, at the end of the day, half of the United States approximately is going to vote for Trump, and half is going to vote for Biden, or if Biden's replaced. So the idea that you're going to pass some moral judgment because other people are voting for separate issues to what you're voting for, that's, again, I believe, a cause of the division. You shouldn't do it. I don't think you should do it. I don't think it helps anybody. And insofar as Trump winning this election, I think that based on the poll numbers at the moment, it certainly looks that way. And Democrats are going to have to do a little bit more if they really want to win this election. They're going to have to do a little bit more than just saying that Donald Trump's a bad person.
So you're right about the last time a candidate got more than 53% of the popular vote was 1988. Whoever wins, they're going to win by depending on how many votes Kennedy gets, but it'll be just a couple percent dividing the winning candidates.
Oh, just a note that in case you people don't know, that you can actually catch the Pod TV network on Amazon Fire. So if you have an Amazon Fire thing here, you'll see the Pod TV network.
I want to respond to one more thing from Shaquille, which is trans people and, people freaking out about trans people, which is an understandable thing to freak out about, except that they are less than 1% of the population, maybe less than 0.5%, while some of these other policy things, tax policy, inflation, abortion, these are huge. Well, these things affect huge percentages of Americans. And to look at trans as this, major issue is to miss everything else.
I think we can get that comment back on that screen for a little bit longer, even if he does spell my name wrong, Mark.
Just a little bit.
So here it is. Let's take a look at this comment. Shaquille is very intelligent and always makes sense. So you've actually fooled one person, Shaquille. One person.
Well, it's a pretty good person to fool, though, isn't it? A law professor. I've done quite well. But I do want to just come back to Rick. Hang on a second. I do want to come back to Rick. Yeah, Rick, I'm prepared to accept. I don't hate trans people. I don't hate anybody. I'm prepared to accept that, for every 100,000 people, you're going to see some people that just feel this way, that have body dysmorphia or whatever it is. Okay. What I'm not prepared to accept is that just by some miraculous coincidence, we have 30% of the next generation identifying as being, something in the LGBTQ community. And have you seen the new pride flag? What the hell is that big circle thing they've got there now? What is going on? So,
the flag is out of control.
Let me finish. So people to talk about inclusion all the time, diversity, equity, inclusion. Now, apparently, I've just found out I'm no longer going to be able to even say that I'm a person of color anymore, because apparently, according to the United States, I'm now white. I mean, I'm 40 years old. I've never been white before, but apparently that's how I'm now classified. I don't even know what to do with myself. But we'll go along. Okay, now that I'm white, can I tell you that I don't feel much of the stuff that's going on TV is particularly inclusive or reflective of the way that most of us are living. So exactly what you just said. Less than 1%. I think the last time I checked, 0.5% of the population of the United States is trans. So why then do we have so much of this stuff in our face? You've got Dylan Mulvaney trying to sell us Bud Light. You've got Trans Awareness Week, Trans Day of Revenge or whatever. Like, what the hell? Let's just calm down a bit. And I think liberals are going to have to recognise how off-putting that is to people who go to church once a week and read their Bibles.
And with the flip side of that, and I'd love to hear, because it's one of the candidates
No,
that's
wait,
running,
I want to before you go, let me talk about
the flip side of that is, hold on a second, Rick.
Let Rick respond.
All right, so the deal.
Eliminate the
Our
DEI.
response is we're at the hour, so we have to go. So we'll see you tomorrow on World Edition. Take care. Bye-bye.